Alright, what's going on, guys? It is your boy TKD123 here, back in your PlayStation source, and of course we've been talking about a lot on Save Slot Podcast and on Twitter and everything. You guys probably already know this whole news. You read the title, you see the thumbnail, you know what's going down. Days Gone 2 is unfortunately not going down at Sony Bend for a multitude of reasons that we'll go over, but I do want to make the point that I really wish that this game was going to be made, as well as we have some new details by the game's director about what Days Gone 2 could have been if it were to be made. And so let's get right into it. So to get started, let's just recap as to why Sony did not allow Bend Studio to create Days Gone 2. It did get shot down around 2019, and according to that Bloomberg article down below in the description, you can check out that article, but they did give some reasons as to why Days Gone 2 was not worthy of a sequel. And so they say here that it was because of critical reception and the lengthy development time in spite of its insane sales that it had over the course of its lifetime. Now, I do have some issues about both of these reasonings that we will get into, of course, but first up, let's cover the critical reception aspect of what I got to talk about here. So first up here, again, there's been a long talk about why this game got its critical reception and why it got, a 71 on the Metacritic and all that great stuff. And while I'm going to be honest, of course, the game has flaws that are beyond its performance and glitches, I think a big factor into that Metacritic score is, again, the reviewers not having the same version of the game that we had as players when the game launched, and even more so, the people that played it on day one have a much different perspective of Days Gone as opposed to those that played it 2 or 3 weeks out. And of course, that is no excuse, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, hey, the game released in a buggy state, it is what it is, but I wish that Sony would have at least added that context into the reasoning of the critical reception, because like I said before, of course, Days Gone upon launch did have these performance issues, these bugs, these glitches, you guys have all seen those back when the game first came out. But while of course the game also has things that are legit, people just do not like about Days Gone. I know some people don't like the storyline stuff and just the overall just way that this game does not end, and it goes on and on and on, right? Overall, I just feel that the Metacritic score is definitely held down by those glitches and just bugs and performance issues that have since been ironed out for a very long time now. And so I wish that Sony could understand why the critical reception was what it was, and understand that it wasn't inherently the game's fault in a way. You know what I'm saying? Like, I know that seems kind of wishy-washy, but I really do think that Days Gone is an 8 out of 10. I really do think that Days Gone at a minimum is an 80, and I don't think that the Metacritic score is reflective of the game's quality overall. Like, it's like, I'm not saying that a 71 is like miles away from an 80, but I do think that Days Gone is an 80. And then the article brings up, of course, that Sony felt that the Days Gone development time was a bit lengthy. Okay, so according to what I could find, I did scour the internet, try to see where I could find how long it took to develop Days Gone. I was finding 5 to 7 years. Okay, so that means that they started either in 2012, right after Uncharted Golden Abyss, or 2014, a few years after Golden Abyss, when they finally kicked development into high gear on their first console game in a while at that point, right? So maybe the 7 years is going to mark the pre-development era of Days Gone, where they were scripting, they were planning stuff out, maybe casting, etc. And then the 5-year mark at 2014 was when they kicked it into high gear for development and full on just actually developing the game. Maybe that could be the case while there's 5 to 7 years, but with that development time, right, with 5 to 7 years, okay, the game came out April 26, 2019. That's very important because I'm about to read to you guys the April 2019 NPDs, okay? So the NPDs are calculated at the end of the month in April. So Days Gone only had 4 days on the market for the April NPDs because it released on April 26th, okay? It still was able to be the second best selling game in that month of 2019, okay? We look over to May 2019. May, it has the entirety of the whole month is able to sell for Days Gone, right? Because the game's already out. It garnered another number 2 spot on the NPD. Okay, then we have June 2019, the month after that. We have Days Gone at number 10, still charting in the top 20 games sold in the month, and also the top 10, because it's number 10, right? But then after that, it did not chart, and that's just where we go, and that's where we have it now. So overall, it charted in April, May, and June, with April and May having that second slot, and then June having the number 10 slot. Okay, so clearly you can see here that the game sold not crazy well, right? I'm not saying it was number one. Obviously, it wasn't number one, but it definitely sold. Okay, now let's take a look at Dreams from Media Molecule. I'm sorry, but this is what I cannot shake, and this is what I don't understand. Okay, Dreams from Media Molecule. Granted, we can talk about how Media Molecule is a much smaller studio than Sony Bend. We can talk about how Media Molecule takes a lot less to actually operate as a studio as opposed to Sony Bend, but Media Molecule took 7 years to develop Dreams and never charted. The game never charted, and let's be honest, I like Dreams. Dreams is a cool game. I'm not really talking slander about Dreams itself as a game. What I'm saying is that the game doesn't generate revenue. Like Dreams was never a profitable thing as far as I can tell for PlayStation, right? So how does any of this make sense where we have Dreams over here being made by Media Molecule, and they made a game that took around the same time as Days Gone that didn't do near the success as Days Gone, but Days Gone doesn't get a sequel. Not only that, they put the studio behind Days Gone, a very successful game, Sony Bend, up into support again with Naughty Dog projects and these just random things, and they split the team into two. Like, it is clear here that Sony Bend was disrespected. Days Gone was disrespected. Days Gone deserves a sequel. I don't know what to tell you. Like it is beyond me the fact that Media Molecule is still standing with the way these two games performed. Now look, I'm no game developer. I don't head the studio over at PlayStation first party, so perhaps there is a deeper reason to all of this, and I just don't have that information for me. But it's still sad at the end of the day, okay? And maybe somehow Days Gone just didn't recoup enough money to be able to, I guess, warrant a sequel. But we have this interesting thing that, director of the game, Jeff Ross, had to say. He said here, quote, "For games where you have to sell 4 or 5 million copies just to break even, there's got to be a confidence in the return because Sony doesn't have the cash that Microsoft does, and they've got to use it very intelligently, and they've got to stay focused on the diverse portfolio." So I can't really blame that. It is what it is. Microsoft does have a lot more cash to do these risks, and we've been seeing them taking these risks and making these big plays because they have the cash to do that, because Microsoft is not just Xbox, and for the most part a big and honestly the most profitable part of Sony is PlayStation itself, and so it just doesn't have that same backing. Now I do want to talk about once again what Jeff Ross continued to say about the hypothetical sequel, what Days Gone 2 would have been to VGC. So this is transcribed via Push Square, link below in the description. He says here, quote, "We wanted co-op from the beginning in Days Gone, but obviously you have to make concessions for what you're not going to be able to do. It would have been a secondary mode if we had done it in the first one or even in another one. I wouldn't have complicated the main narrative because that's really what we're good at. That was the strength of the first title, so build on that and make it better. But then take this world that you've built and all these assets and systems and repurpose them for some sort of similar themed multiplayer version of the universe. And so it would be with guys like Deacon trying to survive, building up a clubhouse or a crew. I think it would be fun to be in that world cooperatively and see what horde battles could look like. It's one of those things that we had in our pitch. Yeah, it was the idea of a shared universe with co-op play. Are you kidding me? Like, if you guys played Days Gone, do you remember the camps that we had? Like, can you imagine if you were able to, co-op with your buddies and start a camp, and maybe you could have like camps under different like internet communities? Like, what if there was like a IGN Days Gone camp, or a Kind of Funny Days Gone camp, or a Joyclicks Days Gone camp, or of course a PlayStation Source Days Gone camp? Like, I think that would have been a really neat idea, and to be able to tackle these huge hordes in a cooperative style, I think would have been so much fun, and ah man. And you see, now we're likely never gonna get this, and there are other things as well that are pointing to what Sony Bend is working on now, and now that they are able to make their own new game and it doesn't have to be an Uncharted or, you know, anything like that they are not removed off of via the Bloomberg article. So that will be another video upcoming next week. But I do just want to end off with, like, all in all, Days Gone 2 is probably never happening in spite of the game selling well and the general player base overall liking the game. But according to PlayStation, due to its poor critical reception, quote unquote, and long development time, quote unquote, it's unworthy of getting a sequel. But man, I gotta tell you guys, Days Gone 2 had potential. I really felt like Days Gone wasn't at the level of a God of War or Last of Us Part 2, but I feel like it was a great start to a franchise. Because let's be honest, guys, when you think back to the original Uncharted wasn't a masterpiece. It wasn't a 10 out of 10, but it was a good foundation to what was to come to eventually get to Uncharted 4. The original God of War back in 2005, y'all saw me stream that game. That game is not that fire, but it was a great foundation to what the franchise would eventually be in that format, and it would eventually become in God of War 2018. And that's the point I'm trying to make here, is that Days Gone was a great foundation, and honestly a better foundation than a lot of other first games in their franchises that still live on today. And I feel like Days Gone 2 had so much potential, being a very good solid first game, the good foundation in this franchise, that it deserved another crack at the IP with these multiplayer ideas blended in and really expanding the universe. And of course, that very end cutscene in Days Gone, you know they were planning a sequel to that, and I wish that they got the chance to do it. And considering that over 15,000 people have already signed this online petition to get Days Gone 2 going, which, guys, I'm probably not gonna sign it. Like, I want Days Gone 2. I don't know if this petition is gonna change anything, to be honest, but at least it's very clear that there is a community that wants Days Gone 2. I'm a part of that community, and I hope that someday Bend is able to make Days Gone 2 eventually at some point. But with all that being said, what do you guys think in the comments below? How do you guys feel about this whole thing? Do you wish that Days Gone 2 was able to be made so that we can get these multiplayer ideas and aspects into a sequel? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and make sure also, while you are down there, you can check out our description where you can find links to our Discord, our Twitter, and our Anchor link. That way you can listen to our long form content in podcast format, those of course being Road to Rift Apart and of course Save Slot Podcast on Fridays at 10 a.m. and Sundays at 10 a.m. respectively. Like the video if you enjoyed it, as well as hit subscribe to PlayStation Source to keep up with the latest and greatest in PlayStation. Thank you all for watching, and as always, greatness awaits.